Hello, I'm going to warn you in advance. This is probably going to be a long one because it involves making 3 different graphs, doing line plots, frequency tables, and histograms. So let's get started right away. First, our goal is that you'd be able to organize data using these different methods. All right, so we have 2 vocabulary words here. First is frequency. And the frequency of a data value is the number of times it occurs. We can see the frequency here. We'll talk about that a little bit. A frequency table tells us, so frequency table is our second. It's just a table that tells us the number of items an event, category, or group occurs. So first we start by putting an interval. So in this case, it has to be an equal interval. This is just a picture. There's no problem that we did here. I just wanted to show you what one looks like. But these have equal intervals. 28, 29, 30. So 3 in each equal or interval. 30, 31, 32, which really we shouldn't have matching numbers here because if you have a 30, which box would it go in? But anyways, equal intervals. Here we do tally marks, and then here's our frequency. So how many were between 28 and 30? There was 1. How many were between 30 and 32? There were 5. This is just kind of, again, just showing you. Let's make one so we can really understand it better. Okay, using tally marks to make a frequency table. Each student in Mrs. Cho's class recorded their fingerprint pattern. So if you look at the tips of your fingerprints, you'll either see a loop, an arch, or whirl. So a loop would look something like this in the middle of your fingertip. A whirl would, kind of what it sounds like, would be like that. And an arch would be, it would just kind of go like this in the middle of your fingertip. So if you look, it's got to be some good lighting. You can kind of see that in the middle of your fingertip. So they looked at this. So if we named this graph, I would call it, table. I'd call it fingerprint patterns. And then what I'm looking at, the first thing, and I'm going to make sure that I leave enough space for writing here. First thing is I'm going to say, what pattern did we do? And then I'm going to do the tallies. So it's just a good reminder on how to do tallies again. And lastly, what is the frequency? So our 3 options for patterns would be the whirl, bring these down here, the loop, and the arch. Now the tally section seems a little silly that I would do tallies and the frequency number, but it really helps to keep track of things. So I have 1 whirl, 1 loop, 2, I have 1, 2, 3 more loops to add. 1, 2, 3. I have an arch, I have another loop, I have a whirl, I have an arch, I have a loop, I have an arch, loop, arch, whirl. Okay, so that's just kind of the point of the tallies, is to help you make sure you don't miss any of them. And then lastly, the frequency, I'd say, well, I had 3 whirls, I had 7 loops, and I had 4 arches. So that's all a frequency table is. It's just making a quick table so that I can know how many of a certain value are in my data set. Now let's go to the next one. So next we're going to talk about a line plot. Now we did talk about these last year, and I remember we had quite a tricky time, so I'm glad that our book revisits these. So this is an example of a line plot. We have a line on the bottom. We'd put numbers, 1, 2, that's supposed to be 1, 3, 4, and so on. And then I look through my data set. I'd say there's 1, 2, there's 1, 4, there's a 3, oh, there's another 3, there's another 4, there's a 1. So I just kind of show, and so in this case, the number of minutes people studied, there were 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 people that studied 50 minutes. So these are just 2 examples. This line plot chose to put dots. This line plot chose to put X's. And the definition is just using a number line and X's or other symbols to show frequency of values. So show how many of that value was voted for. Let's make one. Okay, students in Mr. Lee's class each ran several miles in a week. Make a line plot of the data. So this is the number of miles run. So first, just going to start by doing my line plot, and I have to start at a good number. I don't have to start at 1, but I just make sure I label. Numbers go on the bottom. 2, 3, 4, 5. And now we don't want to go just until the number ends. We'd want to go past and kind of start before. So then I can put an X on 8, X on 3, 5. All right, I skipped forward so you didn't have to watch me put X's down. We know how to do that. So please take note how all of my first X's, they're all in a nice row. My second ones are all in a nice row. If I don't do that and I do like some X's really small and then I do other X's really big, it's hard to compare. So you want to make all of your X's relatively the same size and make sure that they're nice and lined up. Again, what I'm always preaching is make sure that you are neat with your work. Then to make a title, I would call this number of miles run. Write it down here. Okay, and next. Okay, now here we are going to make a frequency table with intervals. Okay, so let's make our frequency table, number of representatives per state. So this is going to look a little different. I'm going to put here the number, and here I'm going to put the frequency. Now I'm hoping I can fit this all on here. It's kind of got a lot that we've got to do. And then let's put our title on top. It's just going to be the same that's up on the top of our other table. Now I couldn't quite fit it all in, so I just put ... You would have more room on your paper though to make sure it all gets in. So now when it says number, we want to think of our intervals we're going to use. And we need to make sure those intervals are always consistent. I don't want to have an interval of 5 and then my next interval has 6 numbers that can go in there. That doesn't show the spread of our data very equally. Okay, so let's think of our frequency. I'm going to say I'm going to do 6 in each one, and I'm going to do 0 to 5. So if you're saying, Mrs. Hamer, that's only 5. But think of this. 0 is 1, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's actually 6 numbers in that group. So I'm going to go on and do the rest of my group of 6 numbers, and then we'll come back together. Okay, so I made sure that there are 6 numbers in each interval. So 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, that's 6. 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, that's 6. And also you'll notice when I ended off with 5 here, I started my next one at 6. I don't want to do 0 to 5, 5 to 10, 10 to 15, because then again, like I talked about that other frequency table that I showed you, you're going to say, well, if there's a 10, which one do I go in? So if I end with a 5, my next number will be 6. If I end with 11, my next number will be 12. End with 17, it'll be 18. Okay, now we just have to go through and say, well, how many numbers are between 0 and 5 up here? I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 5 counts. 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22. So when I went through, I got 22. So then I would write 22 is the frequency of number of representatives per state in the United States House of Representatives, there are 22. So now I just have to go through and find the rest of these numbers and make sure I'm being really careful. It's very easy if you go too fast that you will accidentally miss one. So please make sure you're really taking your time and cross them off to make sure you've got them all. Okay, after I went through and counted them all, these were the numbers that I found. Only one from 48 to 53. That would be this 52 right here. Okay, so now we're going to take this data and we're going to turn it into a histogram. So if we look at what a histogram is, it is a bar graph. But this bar graph should look a little different to you. The things that are different is it has intervals on the bottom. Bar graphs usually only have one thing on the bottom. It could be a number, it could be like a country or a state. This is going to have intervals, which is what we did on our frequency table. Also, you will notice that the bars touch each other. When we were talking about bar graphs yesterday, we said the bars do not touch each other. In this case, they will touch each other. So anyways, if we read the definition, it says a histogram is a bar graph that shows the number of data items that occur within each interval. Okay, so let's make one now. So we want to make a frequency table. So it's going to kind of be the same as our normal bar graphs. I think we will go up by 4s. 4 seems like a pretty good number to go up by. So I'll go up 4, 8, 12, 16, then 20, 22, 4, and 28. Okay, now this is not our intervals that we chose. This is just how many, the frequency. Okay, and then along the bottom, we would do our intervals. So this would be 0 to 5. This interval right here would be 6 to 11. I don't do them too wide though. 12 to 17. 18 to 23. This is supposed to be in between these two, but I'm trying to be really small. I need a new 24 to 29. And then 30 to 35. I'm just getting this data from the frequency table we just did. 36 to 41. 42 to 47, where there were 6 in each one. And lastly, 48 to 53. Whew, barely made it. Okay, should label it number of representatives by state. All right, and then this side is my frequency. And then along the bottom is the number of representatives. Okie dokie. So now I have to go back and put in my bar graph, and I want to use different colors for each bar. So if I look at my frequency table, there are 22 from 0 to 5. So my 22 is going to be about right here. And then I'll go down to the line and color it in. Oops, got a little overzealous there. Then I'll go to the next one. 6 to 11 had 18. So I'm just going to go right between these two. New color, red this time instead of pink. Okay. The next one was 12 to 17. That had 3. So that'd be a little lower than the 4. Then 18 to 23 had 4, so that'd be just a little touch higher. And these should really be all the same width too. You need to be very careful about all of this. Alright, next color I'll do something like a yellow. 24 to 29 had 0. 30 to 35, though, they had 2. So I'm going to skip 1 and I'm going to go up to 2 here. 36 to 41 had 0. 42 to 47 had 0. And I'll choose kind of a purple. 48 to 53 had just one little one. So then I just color in this little baby one right here. So this would this is what our histogram should look like when we're all done. Again, the bars touch, unless there's one like right here, and right here, where that value or that frequency is 0. But if there are numbers next to each other, the bars should touch. Again, I got my intervals here from the previous screen where I talked about the number and the frequency of our data up here. But I think that should be about it. So again, here are the frequency number, or the numbers, the intervals I chose for the bottom of my histogram. And then these were our frequency that we filled in along the side. So that's where I got all of this information to make my histogram.